Hey guys, happy Saturday. Another unplanned stream. So this morning I'm gonna explain. It's gonna be like the stream of consciousness rewind on why we're doing this stream today. So earlier today, I was reading a thread posted by Andrew Fleischman. And really the theme of this thread, it's short, we're gonna go through it real quick, is the price of advocacy, the availability of advocacy. And Andrew Fleischman is speaking in the post-conviction space. This thread's going to deal with appeals. As soon as we're done reading this thread, we're going to segue into a story about somebody who was accused of a fatal hit and run. The accusation involved an indirect cause. So we'll get into all the details. But apparently Kyren Lacy caused a fatal collision by driving very quickly, swerving or passing other cars, going back into his own lane. And even though he was 97 yards behind the collision, police went and got an arrest warrant for him. And he was about to have a grand jury hearing. He wasn't actually charged yet. But very sadly, he took his own life the day before the grand jury hearing. The story is going viral again now because his attorney, Matt Ory, is still fighting to clear his name. So if you notice, I'm wearing my Justice Served hat and shirt. Shout out to Justice Served TV. You know I love them. But really, this Justice Served isn't taking place with, the police or the judiciary side of the criminal justice system. I think the story here is we have an advocate. We have the attorney going miles and miles and miles beyond to fight to clear their client's name posthumously. And we can't bring Kyren back, and we can't bring back the life of the individual. We're going to read about Mr. Hall and his family. We can't bring back his life either, right? This is tragic for two families that both lost a loved one for an accident that was, in my opinion, you guys will watch it all. You guys can come to your own conclusions. I think the accident was entirely avoidable, but I do not think it was Lacey's fault. I think it was the fault of someone who was only given a ticket for following too closely behind another vehicle. We're going to get into it. But a broader pitch on the importance of advocacy here with this thread from Andrew. Andrew says, I was pitched to take more and more briefs to the Supreme Court of Georgia on murder cases. Only raise sufficiency of the evidence arguments. And this is so tiny, I'm sorry. Sufficiency of the evidence, you guys, we've looked at appeals that use that argument, but typically we're looking at appeals that's one of many arguments. And then usually we're reading appeals from attorneys like Brian Steele, from James Robichaux, who, civil attorney that's now working in the post-conviction relief space for the criminal side of things. They'll raise an argument of cumulative effect, right? And you can't raise a cumulative effect argument unless you're raising at least two issues. But here Andrew's pointing out, we're getting all of these appeal briefs that are only raising one issue. An issue that wins less than 0.1% of the time and requires minimal effort. These briefs are usually from conflict attorneys for the Georgia Public Defender Council. So he gives his own anecdote. He says, I was pitched to take some of these appeals a couple weeks ago. The rate offered is $5,000 to a murder appeal. From motion for new trial to the Supreme Court of Georgia. We get together in this chat a lot. We say, hey, are there any updates on this? And months are going by, right? Motion, brief, going to another court, the Court of Appeals, then the Supreme Court, starting with a motion to vacate a sentence, and then maybe later we're filing a habeas petition. All of these different steps across this wide expanse of time, collecting all these records. You guys have been so great in helping Jim offset some of the costs of getting documents. Do you think $5,000 is a great rate to be offering for this kind of work? Or is it going to lead us to this minimal time and minimal effort? So Andrew goes on, he says, when I pointed out that I usually raise ineffective assistance of counsel claims, which require new evidence, questioning the lawyer, etc., I was told that that's not usually necessary. This phrase, Sole enumeration of error usually suggests a lawyer that has not carefully read the record. I wonder what these briefs look like. So he gives 2 examples here. Georgia used to have a really good appellate division that handled conflict public defender cases from around the state. It had a better than average win rate and a reputation for quality. But since Omotayo Ali became head of the GPDC, that no longer seems to be the case. And this is part of why the Supreme Court of Georgia is considering changing its rule forbidding appeals from co-defendants to be handled by the same office. There just isn't money to get people competent conflict lawyers, and it's not fair giving them duds. He says, one attorney from Augusta, and we're going to get a crossover with AI issues, you guys. One attorney from Augusta has filed a number of briefs with notably inadequate citations, and it appears he used AI to generate his brief in Tucker v. State. And he was charged with giving contraband to a client. I don't understand how he hasn't been fired, and he's a public defender. Even worse, this guy apparently got appointed to be people when other lawyers abandoned their clients in this dog system. So I think we looked at this case recently. Maybe Jim looked at it. But it's vaguely familiar to me, like, oh my God, this guy, somebody's trying to appeal their conviction. And they've been trying to have their appeal heard for years. And they have to get a new attorney because the other one, something happened with the other one. And then this new one comes in and uses citations to parts of the record that don't actually exist, right? So just all of these things put together, good advocacy is hard to come by. It needs to be supported when it's happening. When I'm wearing this Justice Served hat, Justice Served covers a ton of cases, raises a ton of awareness, gets you guys talking about things, looking at things. The idea that we hear a story, we react to it. The idea that we have to be careful to not impanel a jury that thinks just because we're here in this courtroom today, there's obviously enough reason. The police know that this defendant did it, or else we wouldn't be here. This idea that the initial information we hear is the best information and the knee-jerk reaction that we have to it should be where the evolution of our thought process stops. I think all of that needs to change. And with that being said, I shared this thread, an athletic entertainment. Let's see if I have the little. This all started, and I don't know if you're in here today, athletic. But after I posted this thread, Athletic, and I see a reply here, had said like, hey, are you going to cover what's going on with Kyren Lacy? And I had seen that it looked like he was falsely accused. He'd taken his life. I didn't know that the attorney had come out and released a ton of information, and that's what we're going to look at today. And I hope that this attorney and what he's doing inspires advocacy far and beyond what he's able to do as one singular person, because what he's doing is extremely admirable. So let's get into the main subject matter. We'll get back over. We're going to look at this interview. This is the attorney here. This is Matt Ory. This guy, Martin, is doing the interview. We're going to go through, we're going to react to most of the bits and pieces, but the full interview is linked in the description. There's also a fundraiser in the description and linked as a pinned comment if you're watching it live, if you want to contribute to the fundraiser for Kyren's family. And he does a great job laying out the information. I don't think that this stream is going to be us doing a deep dive and trying to get the details. I think this stream is going to be us sitting here like, are you serious? So let's go, guys.
Ory on our program to talk about Kyren Lacy's involvement or non-involvement in a wreck that took place, which took the life of a very popular man, Mr. Hall. And it was well documented, went national. It was talked about, it was written about, it was blogged about, it was all over the nation. So I did tell Mr. Ory back then, and I also tell everyone involved in this, whether you're an attorney or whether you're part of the investigation, you're always welcome to tell your story on HTV. So I told Mr. Ory, if you have anything to add to the story at any point, please give me a holler.
That's a bar. I told Mr. Ory if you have anything to add to the story.
And we'll get you on. So joining me now is Matt Ory, attorney, and good to see you, Matt. Thank you for coming.
Good to see you, Martin. Thank you for having me.
Did you compile anything new?
I've got everything. I've got every piece of evidence I have viewed. I've examined every piece of evidence, which includes all surveillance, all body cam footage, and most importantly, the investigative report that was generated and manufactured by the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office, according to the data that they obtained.
In that report, which is independent of you, when I was going through it and looking at some of these things in it, I think you'll probably go over where they were, because I see you brought a board where you're going to depict where all of them were during the incident.
So already right here, and this is why I'm starting this stream with the thread from Andrew Fleischman. We have a board. We have this attorney that sat here and looked at the details of the case, that went and gathered this information from, we're going to find out he got the information from the state's crash reconstruction expert. He's mapping this out. He's trying to understand every little detail to fight this fight. And there are attorneys that want to have this time, want to have this skill set, want to have the opportunity to do these things, and the pieces just aren't all there for them. And to see it come into motion because this attorney's doing this with the Kyren Lacy case, I cannot help but wonder, how many other times could this be a story if there was the resources for it, or if there was the passion for it, or both? But watch how this guy just lays all of this out. I think it's really complicated to try to understand, like, accident reconstruction and what cars where. We're going to talk about a lot of different vehicles here. He just does an incredible job.
And you have all that information to sort of explain where everyone was at, how fast they were going, what they were doing, all of that.
I do. I've got it all here.
Okay. So most
I've
of this
got it all.
reports, or do you have actual video?
At the entirety of the district attorney's findings, their findings after their own investigation. That's what we're here today to present. We're going to compare and contrast those findings with the findings of state police, because there's a ton of confusion. People seem to believe that somehow he hit someone in this accident, or possibly even shot through two cars and there was this explosion behind him. I've heard every version possible, but we can show you the version right now.
Okay. Sort of describe the video for our audience, what you've seen in the video.
Yeah, so what you'll see is in the top left of the screen, you're going to see multiple cars just making their way south to Thibodaux, coming from Vacherie. At some point in time, you're going to see the collision, which we're going to know is vehicle number 2 from oncoming traffic.
Muted, I'm sorry. We're going to replay it. We're going to replay it real slow. And I'm going to mute them. I think I muted myself, so that way we don't hear that weird slowdown voice. But watch up here. Really hard to see. And then boom, there's your collision. Now, can't see a whole lot of what's going on right here with the other vehicle that is part of the impact, because this truck is in the frame of view, blocking it from us. But we do see this, like, darker, like, maybe grayish car. What we don't see is anything lime green. And that's important. That's important. So let's get back into this breakdown. Matt's going to tell us why it's important that we don't see a lime green vehicle in this image.
Which we're going to know is vehicle number 2 from oncoming traffic colliding with the vehicle of Mr. Hall. You will see another vehicle come to a stop, and then you'll see Kyren Lacy come to a stop.
So as we've seen the video, it looks like the impact happens and then Kyren Lacy is behind him. How far away was he from there?
Well, yeah, that's the beauty of the investigative report that I now have my hands on. We know from data that Kyren Lacy did in fact pass 4 cars. There's no disputing that. Further north, Kyren Lacy passed 4 cars. However, he was back in his lane of travel, 92.3 yards. Back in his lane, behind Mr. Hall. At the time of impact, he's 72.6 yards behind the vehicles at the time of impact. Keyword, behind the vehicles. That is not how this story was ever painted. Never.
Any part of the...
So at this point alone, I'm like, obviously, this had to be an approximate cause theory, right? There wasn't a direct hit. Kyren's vehicle is not didn't impact another vehicle, didn't touch another vehicle. But then he's also charged with like fleeing the scene, like a hit and run. Not charged, sorry, but he was accused. When they initially said that they were looking, that there were reports that they arrested him, the arrest reports, not the charging, because we didn't get to a grand jury. He left the scene. He slows down as he's approaching where the collision is. So to me, that just looks like you're driving, you see something, you're slowing down, and you've got to find a new way to maneuver. That's not the same thing as I was involved in an accident and I sped off. But that's how the story was painted.
District attorney's investigation that talked about Mr. Lacy getting back, I guess we call it, what do you call it, correcting or getting in your proper lane?
Sure, he was back in his proper lane according to their data. This isn't my expert. This is the investigation of the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office. So I'm here simply comparing and contrasting the District Attorney's Office with state police in this matter, their investigations. And in that investigation, it shows that he was back in his correct lane of travel, 92.3 yards. Before this incident occurred, he was back in his lane.
What is the legal law state about where you should be behind, or I want to say I thought it was 100 feet. Is that correct?
It is correct. You know, take out the fact here that it's a no passing zone. If it weren't at this time, it's 100 feet. What we know now is he was 3 times legally what he needed to be back in his lane of traffic.
Where was everybody involved in this? And I see you brought something that you could visibly show everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like I stated, if we're looking at this, and of course this isn't to scale, and I can't draw, but what you see here is vehicle 3. That is Mr. Hall's vehicle. This is another vehicle between Mr. Lacy and Mr. Hall.
Okay.
This is the gold truck that's referenced in the report. This is heading north. So this is the lead vehicle heading north. And the vehicle that actually collided with Mr. Hall's vehicle, that would be vehicle 2.
I'm going to replay this. This is important, right? So in the oncoming traffic lane. So Lacey and Hall are both traveling in the same direction. Hall, again, is the victim. Hall is deceased. On what would be oncoming traffic for them, there's a gold truck and there's vehicle 2. Gold truck is going to be an important witness. Vehicle 2 is the driver that we'll find out was cited with a following too closely behind ticket and nothing else. So let's pause this. Let's re-listen to the who's who, because it'll make it easier to follow if we watch this twice, I think.
Like I stated, if we're looking at this, and of course this isn't to scale, and I can't draw, but what you see here is vehicle 3. That is Mr. Hall's vehicle. This is another vehicle between Mr. Lacy and Mr. Hall.
Okay.
So Lacey is lime green Charger, Dodge Charger.
This is the gold truck that's referenced in the report. This is heading north. So this is the lead vehicle heading north. And the vehicle that actually collided with Mr. Hall's vehicle, that would be vehicle 2. All right. So through the course of this, now we start investigating and dissecting everything we possibly can. When we do that, we start with vehicle 2, right? So what do I know now about vehicle 2? Vehicle 2 was tailgating, all right? According to the data, again, of the district attorney's office, not me, according to their data, tailgating at 49.6 miles an hour, 0.5 seconds behind the gold truck, 1.5 seconds before the crash. So again, if that did make sense, she is following 0.5 seconds behind this vehicle, 0.5 seconds behind that vehicle, 1.5 seconds before the crash at over 49 miles an hour.
So he didn't make this clear, but the speed limit is not like 50 here. The speed limit's like 25, 35. So this vehicle 2, the one that ended up actually impacting the vehicle for the deceased, is doing a consistent 49.6 miles per hour speed and then suddenly engages the emergency brake system 0.5, a half second before the time of impact, while following this gold truck. So we have the vehicle information showing us something's funny going on with this vehicle too. We're going to hear from Gold Truck. We're going to hear words from Gold Truck and then hear about a supposed written statement that was refused by Gold Truck that relates to what vehicle 2 was doing.
0.5.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So now what we're looking at, this isn't speculation. Through this, we hear there's story after story. Actually, vehicle 2's story got bigger and bigger and bigger until we now have their data, right? So when we get our hands on it, I'm looking at the data from that particular vehicle. That data in that vehicle shows me 5 seconds previous to this crash. 5. I'm looking at it, and you're going to show it. 5 seconds previous to this crash, she maintained a speed of 49.6 miles an hour, never activating the EBS system until 0.5 seconds before the crash. Why is that important? Because if your story, which we'll get into, keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you had all this time to see the gold truck, in her words, stomp on their brakes, slam on their brakes, come to a stop, veer off the road. I see another vehicle approaching. I see the Charger approaching. Well, my question to you now becomes, how did you see that vehicle approaching, or him stop, or him slam on his brakes, yet your data says you never touched your brake prior to 0.5 seconds before that crash? I'm looking right now, so are you, at the last 5 seconds according to her. Her car's black box, not mine, not my expert. That's her car. So if you're going to tell me a 5 to 10 second elaborate story, it needs to make sense. And when you have the data, not only doesn't it add up, it's not possible. Notice on there, Martin.
Now, I wish I had the clip handy of, was it Detective Shepard? Yeah, it's Detective Shepard. Where he goes through his spiel of, we look for truth and we look for inconsistencies. If that were the case, why didn't anybody that was looking at this case, and again, this would be at the arrest warrant stage, so why weren't the officers? This is still the officer stage, and it's something that the DA could have caught before even deciding to put this in front of a grand jury. But at least at the gate with the officers, why wouldn't an officer be salivating? Why wouldn't the district attorney be salivating to have like a wishy-washy story from somebody about, oh no, I saw them and I made sure I tried to stop too. I hit the brakes multiple times. I saw them putting on their brake lights in front of me at least 5 to 10 seconds beforehand. And then you have the driver that was in front, like, no, she was riding my ass. We're going to hear. She hasn't used those words. I'm using them. And then she had to veer around me because she was going too fast to stop. It's blowing my mind that seems like a gimme. You have the data, you have a statement from the gold truck driver, and you have an inconsistent statement from vehicle 2, the driver of vehicle 2. You have the trifecta of things that you could do to continue to investigate and decide whether or not to bring charges beyond a ticket for following too close for the driver of vehicle 2. But they don't do that. They get hooked on looking for a green Charger. They want to find this green Charger. It's like they had tunnel vision to the shiny sports car. It must have been that car. So, and it's just blowing my mind. You have enough there to go after somebody. You can actually pin this on somebody with the data, with a statement, with a witness, and then they just don't do it.
It says 75 degrees, right? You turn 75 degrees to the left all of a sudden. That's what happens when you tailgate. Now, interestingly enough, this vehicle was actually, when this woman was in the ambulance, they issued her a ticket, all right? You know for what? Take a wild guess. Following too close. Data from the district attorney's office tells me you're traveling 0.5 seconds at 49.6 miles an hour, 1.5 seconds before the accident. That's not tailgating? That's not following too close. Of course it is. Ticket was taken away.
I'm looking at the data and I'm learning some new things here. So the 75, the steering input at 75 to the left,
That's correct.
any indicate that, I would guess 75 on a scale of 100, that's a pretty hard turn to the left.
It's a very hard turn to the left. The gold truck, the lead vehicle in oncoming traffic, who, by the way, is probably one of the two most important witnesses in this entire case. We know now that 2.99 seconds prior to him pulling off the road, he was traveling 28 miles an hour.
Let's break that down. If it's, again, it's hard to follow numbers. It can be hard to follow numbers, but let's repeat the numbers that we've heard so far. So, and we've seen the diagram real close. Police at least issued a citation to driver 2, vehicle 2. Following too closely behind the vehicle in front of you. The vehicle in front is gold truck. Gold truck was doing 28 miles an hour. Vehicle 2, riding the ass of gold truck, was doing 49.6 miles per hour consistently for seconds leading up to when they finally engage their emergency brake system, 0.5 seconds before vehicle 2 ends up colliding with Mr. Hall's vehicle. Does it not raise a red flag that the vehicle that was tailgating somebody is doing almost twice the speed of the vehicle that they're following?
"28 miles an hour." Now, you're going to hear his statement in a little while, and it's going to all make sense. But let's be very clear right now for the intent and purposes of what we're doing. There are two vehicles that we're talking about right now that are traveling north. The second vehicle in oncoming traffic, which is vehicle 2, their data says she is tailgating. She is 0.5 seconds at 49.6 miles an hour, 1.5 seconds before the crash. And you saw her data, 50.3 to 49.6.
Yeah, so she stayed at 49.6 until 0.5 seconds.
So it's a little tiny on the screen, but now they're showing the full chart from the report. Again, information that was available before the grand jury hearing. So Kyren Lacy takes his life the day before the grand jury hearing. This information was available before that happened, before he made that decision. So this isn't even a situation, sure, as the public, we didn't have this information. People didn't have this information. But those that were bringing forth the grand jury, presenting, the charges to the grand jury, hoping to secure an indictment, they could have said, what, look at this. This is not the person to blame. So it's really tiny on screen, but it takes us from the 5 second before the collision window. Each line looks like it represents a 0.5, half a second increment. And it takes us from 50.3 for 2 of the frames. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7 half second increments are all 49.6. And then we jump to 45.9, 0.5 seconds before. And then the collision seems to have happened at 39.7 miles per hour. And again, the gold truck was only doing 28 miles per hour. So at the point of collision, vehicle 2 is still moving at 39.7 miles per hour. That is glaringly problematic. Like, I feel like the insurance company on the other side would love this information. I feel like an officer, a district attorney should have loved this information. Because even after engaging your emergency brake system, it seems like you're still going faster than the speed limit and significantly faster than the vehicle you were immediately behind. I'm telling you, this just looks like a gold mine, but not a gold mine against the lime green Charger that Kyren Lacy was driving and that the police wanted to pursue. So, yeah, factual lie. That's where I saw and that's why I didn't see the full interview, right? Because I watched with Cuff Boys, who is incredible at condensing down information in an easy to understand way. So let me get that link and I'll drop it in the chat. But yeah, angry all day. Angry all day.
And then
there's a variation of less than a mile per hour.
Yeah.
It's 0.7, I believe.
Right. Did she give any police report or anything?
Oh, absolutely.
Here's vehicle
So-
2 driver.
Let's talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
we will. This particular individual, and for purposes of this report, I'd like you, Martin, this is page 9, if you could follow along to make sure I'm not misquoting a single thing.
All right.
All right, I'm looking at the investigative report of the district attorney's office. And then here you can see this is their investigator looking at vehicle 2 statements, and now he's analyzing. He says, upon reviewing the body cam video of the trooper from the scene, the following statement was made by, we'll call her vehicle 2, right? I just know the truck was stomping on brakes. The other was trying to pass the other car. I was trying to dodge by not hitting him, by coming around.
What? I just know the truck was stomping on brakes. Did you know that? And when did you know that? The other car was trying to pass the other car. I was trying to dodge by not hitting him, by coming around. When the trooper asked how fast she was going, she replied, the speed limit.
When the trooper asked how fast she was going, she replied, the speed limit. He next says, I reviewed the recorded interview and the written statement from vehicle 2 while she was in the hospital on January 3rd, 2025. Below is a synopsis of that interview. And the very first, it says, all I can see is that a car is coming this way and the car in front of me. Right before the crash. I'm looking at the pickup truck in front of me. That's all they see for the moment.
Guys, I don't know if you're ready for this.
I'm eating my Funyuns.
Why do you think of that? Is this like sprinkling in the little bit of truth with the lie? Are the Funyuns the sprinkle of truth? Because I believe that she was eating her Funyuns. But the rest of it doesn't seem truthful. It doesn't match what's going on. And it seems like it's a little bit beyond, and maybe I'm so angry that I'm overjudging this, but the details she's giving here seem a little bit beyond, memory can act funny, shock is funny, but she's remembering quite a bit in great detail, very specific detail. I don't know if that's attributable just to I'm shocked in the moment and this is how my memory works. But I think the Funyuns part is real.
I got in the middle of my lap and I'm driving. I'm listening to my music. All of a sudden, I see the car get in the other person's lane. The truck, in quotes, steps on his brakes. First, so it slows down, but then he does it again, and this time it's really hard. That's when you can see on the other side the car is trying to get back over. But before he can get over, the truck stops in the middle, like on the brakes, hard. There's another car that runs damn near into the pole. It's either I run into him or I try to get out the way, so I'm trying to get into the dollar store parking lot. Then the other car just comes and slams into me. The trooper asked vehicle 2, whenever you're looking forward, or the car's in front of you, they swerve off to the right before you make your left, or are you looking at a green Charger coming at you?
So now we finally get a mention of a green Charger.
Or, in end of quotes. Vehicle 2 responded with, the green Charger came, and then the car behind me, behind them, the truck, the van, whatever. The trooper.
So now we don't know the details. We have a line-by-line, very detailed recitation, except we're not adding in this detail about a green Charger being the vehicle that was somehow near this collision and the reason I needed to veer my car. We have all these details lining up. Then we have a trooper say, but what about the green car? And then the green car, the other car behind me, they came behind me or behind them or whatever.
Does not ask any further follow-up questions to get a better understanding of what she was saying for this answer. Now remember, I'm reading what the investigator's saying. When vehicle 2 states the truck stops in the middle of the road like on the brakes hard, this statement indicates that the gold truck stopped in the middle of the lane and not, in quotes, swerving off to the right. This would also show that vehicle 2 would have steered to the left to avoid contact with the gold truck and not Kyren Lacy. During this interview with the trooper, vehicle 2 made several statements that do not match the submitted report or written statement. Instead of questioning Vehicle 2 for more details, the trooper attempted to recap what she was saying, which seems to contradict her statements. While doing this, the trooper is the first to talk about the gold truck swerving off to the right.
So there it is, reinforced that the trooper's the first one to give this detail. Trooper's the first one to give the detail in the effort to clarify contradicting statements within the same interview that the driver of vehicle number 2 is giving. Again, this goes back to this would be the gold mine. This is what cops say they look for. Well, we look for the inconsistencies. Everything is right here. The answer to this puzzle all seems to be right here. And yet we're looking for a green Charger.
Then when it came to obtaining the written statement, the trooper tells Vehicle 2 what to document on the statement as she is writing.
I have two questions here. One, I'd like to know more about the statement that she made to the trooper. The other one would be, do we have any data on the gold truck?
2.99 seconds before the gold truck eases off to the road.
Okay.
Eases off of the road.
Right.
He's traveling at 28 miles an hour.
Right.
That all is in this report.
Yeah, that's my question.
You watch someone slam on their brakes. You watch them stop. You watched a car chart coming at you in your lane of traffic, but you never thought to just tap the brakes? Really? No. Data is accurate. The black box is accurate that says that you never touched your brakes. You never.
But she was eating her Funyuns. And I'm not trying to demonize taking a sip of your drink or reaching into a bag of fries while you're driving. My point, my focus about the Funyuns is it seems like the sprinkle a little bit of truth in with the lie so you can tell your story and cover your own ass. The Funyuns are the truthful part. Yeah, there's a bag of Funyuns still in my car. I'm obviously telling you the truth if I'm willing to concede that maybe I had things going on with the car. Maybe I could have stopped a little sooner, but I shouldn't have been in a situation where I had to slam on my brakes. It was somebody else's fault that caused that thing. Right? So I can wiggle out. I'm telling truth enough that you'll believe my story that it wasn't me that caused this accident. There was nothing else I could do.
Never touch your brakes in the last 5 seconds until 0.5 seconds before the impact. That's their data. It's not mine.
Proceed. What did you find out after that?
So what I was curious about here, most importantly to me, in terms of the oncoming traffic, right? So I'm looking at that gold truck. I want to know what they said, when they said it, what were the circumstances, how did this come about? And this is where it really starts tying together, right? The gold truck, they end up getting a statement from this individual. There's two of them. The very first one, what I noticed on the body cam was that the conversation was going on for 4 minutes and approximately 30 seconds prior to the body cam being activated. And of course, when the body cam's activated, I don't know what you said those previous 4.5 minutes, they end up at this individual's house to obtain a statement. I want to play right now how that statement started.
Okay, let's roll that in.
Wait, I might do that loud beep. Oh, okay, I caught it right before. It's not that loud. But there's always that loud beep. Guys, these body-worn camera devices, there's like a delay when you press to start recording audio. I think it's typically 30 seconds from the device manufacturer that most departments use. But when the audio is starting, it does this little beep that sometimes is very loud. That wasn't bad. Now this is Gold Truck Driver. This is the guy that was doing the like 29 miles per hour and was the one that vehicle 2 was tailgating behind.
Alright, sir. So, look, don't worry about filling any of this top information, like your name, address. Don't worry about any of that. Just right here, if you could, I'll just have you write exactly what you saw. Just make sure to include, where you were.
I don't even know what the name of that highway.
It's Highway 20. Highway 20. That you just.
All right, me and my wife gonna figure out right quick.
Okay, just make sure you add in there that you had to slam on your brakes and the brakes you had to slam on the brakes to avoid that charger and the brakes locked up to avoid that charger. That's.
I ain't skid mark or nothing. I wasn't even going for it. That lady in the back of me.
We're going to replay this. It's hard to hear, but he's saying, I wasn't even going that fast. It was the lady in the back of me. So officer's ready to get this report. To me, I think the officer may have been speaking to this person before he goes to the car and gets the paperwork, gets the clipboard, but he must not have had his body cam audio on for the earlier parts. But now he has it on when he's recording himself saying, make sure you put that part in about the charger and the brake check. We'll turn it up a bit to hear. We're going to call him Gold Truck Driver.
Don't worry about filling any of this top information, like your name, address. Don't worry about any of that. Just right here, if you could, I'll just have you write exactly what you saw. Just make sure to include, where you were.
I don't even know what the name of that highway.
It's Highway 20. Highway 20. That you just.
All right, me and my wife gonna figure out right quick.
Okay, just make sure you add in there that you had to slam on your brakes and the brakes you had to slam on the brakes to avoid that charger and the brakes locked up to avoid that charger. That's.
I ain't skid mark or nothing. I wasn't even going for it. That lady in the back of me. She didn't say what was happening. That's how she called that wreck. She was running in the back of me. She pulled on the other side. And that's not in it.
So, but the charger was coming right at you,
Right,
correct? And that's why you had to slam on your brake, the head on with you. So yeah, just make sure you include that, and that's very important because we're trying to locate this charger right now. So just include that in the statement, and I'll read it over, and then I'll be out of here.
In that video,
I want to take a quick segue. Last time I had a stream, I was like, hey, Dolly Talk is streaming the James Ogletree trial. I didn't know much about it at the time, but I knew it was a prison murder trial. He's been found guilty. But the jury, it was an Ohio case, and the jury got to ask questions to each witness before the witness was let off the stand. And I was loving the case because the jury was asking a ton of questions about things like, so who monitors the security in the jail? Why did it take you guys until 4 a.m., like 12 hours later, to find out somebody was dead in their cell? Why didn't you do things? And then some of the witnesses were great as well. And a witness, another incarcerated individual that was called to testify, a defense attorney was cross-examining him about, you said you didn't know until now. Why is that? Here's a little clip of exactly what we saw in this interaction with the Gold Truck Driver and the officer trying to prompt details to be put into a written statement. It plays out at trial too. Here's a recent clip from James Ogletree trial.
You said it's been so long since you saw the video.
No, I just seen the video the other day.
Who showed you the video?
The prosecuting attorney. That's how I know what to say today, because I just saying what I got on camera. That's the only thing I did.
I got you.
That's how I know what to say today, because the prosecuting attorney showed me this video a few days ago. So, and I don't think it's that often that people are aware. This guy that was on the stand is either intentionally trying to throw the attorney under the bus, or he's just being very forthcoming in his words and doesn't care what he's spitballing and saying out loud. He's just saying, yeah, I saw it the other day. That's how I know what I'm saying today. I didn't know back then. But I think a lot of people, and not even maliciously, just as a matter of the way the mind works, if you have a case that takes like 3 years to go to trial, an incident happens in 2020, trial happens in 2025, and in 2020, a few months after the incident, you meet with an investigator, someone from the prosecutor's office, and they ask you a couple questions, and they say things like, well, do you remember, did they grab any ice to put on their wound? Maybe in that moment, you're like, well, I don't know, maybe. But then at trial, maybe you're like, yeah, I think I know that there was ice. I know that there was an injury, and you're more assured of what you're testifying to because something was, your neurons fired off when you were asked that question about the ice. And now 4 years later, your brain has an association with ice cube injury incident. And you're like, yeah, I recall something about that, but I'm not sure exactly. But now the jury's hearing that, and they're like, why else would there be ice if there wasn't a wound? Right? So when people aren't aware, and I don't blame people for not being aware of every little way that their mind works and files away details in memory. And if a defense attorney isn't aware of the interviews, maybe there's nothing more than a bunch of notes, right? Or we didn't take notes at all during the interview. So all you have is our summary of what we're willing to tell you we spoke to this witness about. And the defense attorney doesn't have the opportunity to say, well, you didn't really remember back then. So the most they can do is say, would you say your memory is more reliable now today or closer to the time and place when the event actually took place? That's what a defense attorney usually has to work with. So yeah, really, really big issue when you have police officers maybe hours after the incident took place hammering details to a key witness.
You can clearly hear the suggestive nature indicating that I need you to say that you had to slam on your brakes and you had to avoid a charger.
Okay, just make sure you add in there that you had to slam on your brakes and the brakes, like, you had to slam on the brakes to avoid that charger and the brakes locked up to avoid that charger. That's.
But then you hear Gold Truck, the witness who's the Gold Truck, what he says. And he says verbatim.
I ain't skid mark or nothing. I would have been gone, man. That lady in the back of me, she didn't saw what was happening. That's how she called that wreckage. She was running in the back of me. She pulled on the other side. And that's how it is.
I didn't skid marked or nothing because I wasn't even going that fast. That lady in the back of me, she didn't see what's happening. That's how she caused that wreck. She was going to run into the back of me and she pulled into the other side.
The gold mine. What? Like, it's so hard for me to believe that a police officer wouldn't be salivating that they have a witness saying she was speeding behind me. That's how she caused the crash. Oh my gosh, we have a witness. We have a witness for this thing. This is great. They're like, no, but what about the other car that was 97 yards away? Exactly. He just goes.
But there's a bigger problem. I then obtained the actual written statement.
And this is from the Gold Truck.
This is the Gold Truck. Now, after the statement we just went through, notice I've obviously redacted names, addresses, and the cell phone number in fairness to the individual who is Gold Truck number one in oncoming traffic. See, the problem with that statement is it is in direct contravention to what was said minutes earlier. It's not written by him, and where it says signed, it's not signed, it's refused.
Chat. So they have this written statement, and it's something I had to learn, right? Written statements usually aren't prepared by the individual purported to be making the statement. It's prepared by an officer, and then it's acknowledged by, the complaining witness, by the witness. Somebody might be like, yeah, that's good enough, move it along. Here, this witness is like, no, I'm not signing that. I'm refusing to sign that. And we also have him on the body cam audio. Again, we don't have the beginning part of the body cam. Presumably the audio wasn't turned on for the first part of the conversation. But once the officer goes back and gets his clipboard from his vehicle and comes back to take a statement, and the guy's like, all right, me and my wife will write something quickly. Whatever he says doesn't match what was in this refused written statement that was prepared by some officer. We don't actually have a written statement. And his words that are on the body cam say, vehicle 2, the woman behind me, caused the crash. But we're looking for the green Charger. And shout out to Gold Truck Driver for, attention to detail, not wanting to refuse. He gave information, right? It's not just that he was on it, you couldn't find this witness, you couldn't speak to him. We clearly see that he's being interviewed. Then when he's handed a piece of paper that says something that doesn't comport with what he saw, what he witnessed, he's like, no, not signing.
But you see, when I have a witness who is the most critical, and he's telling you, I wasn't traveling fast. We know now that he wasn't. The data shows 2.99 seconds before that he was traveling 28 miles an hour. The data shows that. Now he corroborates that. And he goes on to say, I didn't even make a skid mark. That woman behind me, she caused that accident. And you give me this statement that is refused? I got a problem. I got a problem with that. A big one. What he's saying is she had to avoid hitting him. Mm-hmm. He specifically stated she caused that accident. But I've got an affidavit for arrest warrant right here. Nowhere in here does it say anything that you guys just saw on body cam. To the contrary, about that vehicle, it says the gold truck took evasive action by emergency braking and driving off the roadway to avoid a head-on crash. But you just heard he said, I wasn't even going fast. I didn't even skid mark. So what emergency braking are we referring to here? And what the hell was the point of this report? That is complete opposite.
Hold on, wait a minute. I didn't pay attention. Who is this? Tyler Werner? Officer taking statement. And the signature is also Tyler Werner. Signed refused is what it says down here real tiny. This isn't funny because we have somebody that was killed in a fatal collision that I feel like they didn't get justice and they didn't hold the individual that caused the accident accountable for this fatality. And sure, innocent until proven guilty for driver number 2 as well. But I have a real issue with the police tunnel visioning to a green Charger. Right? I think they're just like a sports car. That's the one. Or, maybe they looked at the same video we were looking at and just couldn't piece together frame by frame that the collision happened up here and lime green Challenger was yards and yards away. They just saw green Challenger come into the video and they said, oh, let's go get him. So, but seeing this, I think this is so important to see. This is when we hear that there's a statement. Sometimes we hear press conferences, press releases, or a news report is reciting what's coming from a written statement. Just know that there are circumstances where the written statement is written just like this by an officer that's preparing the statement. But as we're learning the information, we're hearing the reporting, it's easy to read it and assume that these are the words written by the witness themselves. And that can create two very different stories that often it's not given in context, but you're consuming the information, you're taking it at face value as if it's a direct statement. I think that's such an important lesson here. And here it's an example where the witness is like, nope, I'm refusing.
And what the hell was the point of this report? That is complete opposite. I would expect that you'll show this to where they can read what was said versus what was written just minutes earlier.
And just make sure you add in there that you had to slam on your brakes and the brakes, you had to slam on the brakes to avoid that Charger and the brakes locked up to avoid that Charger. That's.
I ain't skid mark or nothing. I wasn't even going, man. That lady in the back of me, she didn't saw what happened. That's how she called that wreck. She was running in the back of me. She pulled on the other side, and that's not in it.
So, but the Charger was coming right at you, correct? Right. And that's why you had to slam on your brake, head on with you. So yeah, just make sure you include that, and that's very important because we're trying to locate this Charger right now. So just include that in the statement, and I'll read it over, and then I'll be out of here. Okay?
Refused.
By the way, the body cam wasn't on for this statement. It was turned off before obtaining this statement. And this is what we get back in a file. This. Remember, Kyren passed.
And remember, if it's already on, you have to consciously think to turn it off. It's different than, oh, I forgot to turn it on. Which, I'm sure that's given as an excuse, and it might not be a truthful excuse at times, but it's plausible, right? The idea that you forget to turn on the recording. We do it with work all the time. We do Zoom recordings. We want to record the replays. And like 10 minutes in, we're like, oh crap, we forgot to hit record. And we'll miss the intro, which is usually small talk anyway. That's at least plausible. But how do you accidentally turn off and stop recording when you're getting a written statement? I think you have to press and hold to engage those devices. I don't think it's like a little, like, it's a touch screen, and if the wind blows too hard, it engages the on-off button. So why?
I'll just put X's. This is where Kyren passed, right? He comes here, he passes. He gets back in his lane. Don't you know that one of these witnesses that's in this package actually says in his statement that the Charger passed through the vehicle of Mr. Hall and the gold truck and vehicle 2, and then they collided? I can't make this up.
I know the video was a little hard to see. Is that what happened in the video, chat? It's not funny. It's ridiculous.
Passed through the vehicle of Mr. Hall and the gold truck and vehicle 2, and then they collided.
So this statement says that green truck goes through the vehicles before the collision. And if that's really what happened, then Funyun's story would make more sense. It would match what was going on. This is all happening. Car in front of me is pumping their brakes. I had to pump my brakes. All I could do was veer into the side. But that's not what happened at all. It's not what happened at all. And yet they put it in the statement anyway.
I can't make this up. This is what people just don't get to see. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not saying this intentional. I'm saying people commit to a story and they don't back down. You saw it here, but I'm telling you, you guys saw a video. You just saw a statement where somebody tells them what to say. They tell them that's not what happened. They still give me the statement. And now I got another individual who we won't harp into here because it's so uncredible, right? That one individual, one of the 4 individuals here, they say that they were going 30 to 35 miles an hour when Kyren passed him. He did. There's no disputing that. No one ever did, but he was back in his lane of travel. 92.3 yards back in, 72.6 at the time of impact. When they collide, he is 72.6. Before they collide, he is almost a football field away back in his lane. That's not disputed. What you can see is another car come to a stop.
All right. So, yeah, YP, I didn't replay the video because I thought it was going to come back up, and here it is. But let me rewind it because the captions were in front of it. But let's see. Is the attorney giving the correct description of the order of events here? Or is this statement? When did the lime green car go through the vehicles? Before or after the collision?
Back in his lane. That's not disputed. What you can see is another car come to a stop, and then Kyren Lacy come to a stop. But you know what's really interesting to me as well is that there was another passenger in Kyren Lacy's car. They knew this. They have video footage of this individual getting out of the car. Why didn't you ascertain his identity? Why would you not want to hear the person with one of the best views of this incident? Why would you make a call? Why would you simply not bring him in for questioning?
And I'm sure you talked to him after.
Of course I talked to him after. It's exactly what they said. Yeah. It's exactly what they said. Mm-hmm. They actually thought at one point in time that she collided with the gold truck. That's the very first thing they told me, that they thought that this vehicle 2, was trying to get around the 2, as in slide between them, as in, uh-oh. You know, so you can see why. This is just amazing now, what I know, and there's so much more. We've spent hours and hours and hours scouring.
And we're going to reinforce this. This guy is fired up. I love it. I'm standing for Matt Ory. I love attorney advocates, but I understand that even the most passionate attorneys don't have the time and resources. And not for nothing, but I know Karen Reed was a huge case, right? But I think that was such an exception to what you would expect with motor vehicle accidents and the cases that stem from them. You know, cases where criminal charges stem from motor vehicle accidents. I don't think it's that often that we get these detail by detail breakdowns And if this is the case, shout out to everybody that fights the fight and goes through detail by detail like this to defend their clients. And on the other side, prosecutors, hopefully there's prosecutors out there that would go through this stuff and say, this green Charger's not the one. Let's go back to vehicle number 2, right? But when there isn't the time and resources, when there isn't the attention to detail, when there isn't the skill set to put together what this attorney's doing to lay out with the diagram and his bad drawing and the details, the play-by-play, it takes a skill set and time to do that. And that's finite. I mean, there aren't a million people in the world that have the time and skill set to do that. And I think it causes huge injustices. There's no justice for the victims that are lost when we try to just guess and point the finger at somebody. It's not justice when somebody doesn't have counsel that has the time and skill set and the passion. It's a very, very fortunate thing when a defendant has access to an attorney who's knowledgeable, skilled, does their job by the books, does their job well, and is passionate about what they're doing. I think that's rare. So here he is saying we spent hours and hours scouring. And I don't think we'd have this if it weren't for that. So, same thing. I think Kyren was fortunate to have Yannetti. And again, that was a huge team. I mean, so many names. You have Eliza Little making a name. I think Alan Jackson already had a name, but I got bigger because of that case. A whole team, very fortunate to have a whole team that could sustain 2 long, drawn-out trials. So, also, thank you for all the love again today, you guys. Shannon hopped in here early with a happy Saturday, everyone. Brooklyn said it was Thursday. But it's so good to see everybody no matter what day it is. Brooklyn, thanks for being green. A very important member of the Green Gang here. Factual Lie with the 16-month membership. That's crazy. I don't even feel like I've had a channel for 16 months. Says, don't forget to do the YouTubey things. Nita Beta, it's so good to see you. I feel like it's been a bit. Says, hi, Kat. So glad you're doing this. I'm so angry. I've been cycling through it all morning, like getting mad about, the lack of appeal resources that we started the stream with, and then funneling into this. I've just been mad. So I'm glad you're here to be mad with us. KC Doc says, I missed the description of the woman driver. I think they're redacting for identity purposes, which is the correct and proper thing to do. As much as I complain, I am not a proponent of lynch mob culture. And I think the attorney, obviously, he's in a professional position. It's his case. It was his client. It'd be very not good for him to say, this is the woman, go get her. Right? So I think that's why we're not getting details, right? They're redacting things for a reason. But I know what the feeling, and it feels like, oh, I wish we knew so she couldn't get away with it. I know what that feels like. KC Dog also says, I'm gonna keep it real, and I think you're on to something. It sounds like certain people were trying to protect this woman and manipulate the other demographic that wasn't even involved. And I don't know if it's my brain wanting there to be an explanation, and that this is plausible, right? It's a possibility. But I want to know, why is everything, the stars are aligned for them to say, like, look, whether it wasn't, this woman was driving recklessly and couldn't stop in time, she probably wasn't out there trying to speed her car and cause a crash, but negligence, recklessness, all the stars seem aligned to give the police enough to obtain a warrant and then give the DA something to present to a grand jury for the driver of vehicle 2. But somehow we're fighting this fight to go after the green Charger. And again, by the time they were seeking the arrest warrant, they had identified the driver, the owner of the green Charger. So by that point in time, now they are knowingly going after Kyren Lacy. So, I don't know. Were they trying to protect the driver of vehicle 2 and just said blame it on the other car? People will believe it was a sports car. That'll be an easy one to pin it on. I don't know. Although I will say this, I do think, I really do think sports cars are targeted. You could be driving like a grandma in a sports car, and a cop that's sitting there with a lighter gun is going to be like, that must have been the one that was speeding. Meanwhile, it's like the little hoopty that was zooming by with the bumper falling off at like 100 miles per hour. They're going to be like, huh, it was your car, Mr. Sports Car Driver. So, oh man. But yeah, I don't know. I want there to be an explanation because I want something to make sense. But I don't know. And good to see you, Casey Dog. And watch the rise, you guys. This is, let's see. We got, I can't do good hand signals. We got the Spock wave. So good to see you. I'm like, man, I don't have good, I can't snap my fingers. Not very good with hand signals back here. They'll never indict me for being part of a gang because of my hand signals. But good to see you. And YP says, so the accident had already happened by the time he drove up behind. Then he just moved to the other lane. He hit nobody, right? So no collision with Challenger and other vehicles. No collision. And we heard, and the attorney is conceding, that he passed other vehicles. Like, you go into the other lane and pass vehicles. He had done that before and was already back in his own lane after passing other vehicles 97 yards before the point of collision. 97 yards is pretty far away. I don't really think it's plausible that this lady, who doesn't seem to be actually aware of what the vehicle in front of her was doing, since her story doesn't match her vehicle black box records, was reacting to a vehicle that was doing something in her lane of traffic in front of a truck. I don't think the visibility would have even be there for that excuse to be something that was in her awareness, even if the Charger was closer. But it's so far away, I think it's just a complete bullshit theory. So, yeah, the lime green, maybe the lime green was the Funyuns bag. So, oh man. So let's see. Let's end my ranting. Let's get back over to Matt Ory's very passionate advocacy. I'm not going to call it a rant. We're going to call it advocacy.
I don't know how else to tell anybody else that this is not mine. I didn't generate this. I didn't manipulate this. I didn't alter it. I didn't manufacture it. I received it from the district attorney's office. I then did my job and I compare it to the report and the investigation of state police. And it is drastic. It's drastic. The very last line of the report from the district attorney's office says, the evidence submitted in the crash report does not support that Kyren Lacy should have known that his actions were the cause of the crash that happened approximately 72 yards in front of him. And what?
So wait, so I didn't catch that part until just now. So how is the story that he fled the scene? If the district attorney was saying that he didn't flee the scene, how is that the story that was going around? And I'm filling in gaps. I'm like looking backwards today. I'm looking backwards at what the story and reaction was back then. But that was like part of the bubble of the story that was blowing up months ago. Was that he caused a fatal collision, and the impression for most people on social media, it seemed like they believed his car made the impact and that his car was one of the ones wrecked and shown in the picture, which the picture doesn't have a green Challenger in it, and that he fled the scene, presumably on foot because the vehicles are still present and they thought those vehicles belonged to him. But the DA didn't even, how did that story just telephone game that way?
We know is we never disputed ever that he passed those vehicles. They were in a row, 4 vehicles in a row. We know they were going 30 to 35 miles an hour. He passed them. It was a no passing zone, but he got back in 92.3 yards. He was back in his lane of travel. He was 72 yards behind at the time of impact. We know that now. He was actually the second car to pull up behind, not even the first. At no point in time did he have to slam his brakes. He wasn't even close to the second car. He just eased in. He eased in. He went straight from there to the facility in Trevor for his football practice. But he had no idea he caused this accident because he didn't think he caused the accident. He didn't cause the accident.
When did you get knowledge of it? When did you first get on the case itself? When were you notified?
Weeks after. Remember, from the time of this investigation to when a warrant was executed, there were weeks apart, right? And then I get involved after that. By the time I get involved, he's already charged with this. So that's a circumstance that I inherit.
Right.
But, you know, you hear things, you keep your eyes open, you keep your ears open, and you listen, and something wasn't passing the litmus test here. So, you know, when you look back on this and you see actual data, that's not mine, that shows these types of things, and you go as far as a witness saying he split between two vehicles and then there was the spontaneous combustion, it truly should open some eyes, right? That is not even close to what happened.
As you started your discussion with Kyren Lacy, and look, once again, we'll talk about Mr. Hall later in the program because
Mr. Hall's
we're
the
not
victim.
avoiding talking about a veteran, but I want to stay on point here just for a second. When you're talking to Kyren Lacy and he's saying, Matt, I wasn't involved in this. What was his mindset like at the time?
It's horrible. Look, man, you got a young kid that's getting assassinated on public media, social media. He begged me to help him. I was already helping, but it was a consistent deal, obviously, meaning far after representation, begging me to help him. And you move as fast as you can with what you have, right? But there was a defining point for me in this whole situation that I knew he wasn't joking. And he referenced things in football fields. And I know it's easy to look back and say, oh, I bet he never said that. He's deceased now. BS. I'm telling you now what he told me. He said I was a football field. A football field is how he compared things, right? So he's saying when he got back in his lane of traffic, I know I was a football or even a little over a football field over by the time I'm back in my lane. And when I told him that they had video surveillance of this whole thing, it was like he was relieved for a second. Because I think in his mind, he thought that, which most did. Most people that I talk to think that he actually hit the vehicle or he barely got past them and then they collided. That was the narrative that I heard the most. So in his mind, at least he's looking at this going, okay, somebody can show I was actually watched this accident. I saw it. And he told me there was a car between them. Hell, after I read everything prior to meeting with him and the things that I heard, I'm questioning what's going on here. Did he just get through and take off like they suggested? You and I read reports earlier. We're looking at old news reports where they say he actually collided with a vehicle.
They did.
They actually said he fled a scene. They actually said he came back to the scene. Do you know how preposterous that is? None of that's true. And he sure as hell never split the difference and barely got through, and then there was some big explosion. That's not what happened. Kyren Lacy passed 4 vehicles. There's no question, in a row. Nobody ever disputed that. But it's now undisputed that he got back in 92.3 yards. Now, interestingly enough, the report indicates that at 120.4 yards, he was already entering back into the lane, right? The reason they reference that is they say in this report, the district attorney's office, their investigation yielded that at that time, Kyren and vehicle number 2, all right, 1.5 seconds before the accident or 120.4 yards apart.
So it said 120.4 yards, not feet.
All this is yards. This is not feet.
It's a big difference.
The only footage we have discussed, you and I today, is what's legally required when you pass a vehicle.
100 feet.
You have to be back in your lane of traffic 100 feet. He was over 300 feet. I'll be the first to admit That particular law does not say when you're in a no passing zone. Be clear. He passed 4 vehicles in a no passing zone. Never been disputed. Not once. Did I ever dispute that or anybody else? But the big narrative spun was, and this is very important, that he was actively passing at the time of this accident. That is extremely important. We know now that is 100% false. In the conclusion of the district attorney's report,
What page you on? I'm going to follow it.
this is on page 12.
Yeah, let me get to 12 here.
They got the papers.
Okay, go ahead.
They state in here that they gave the impression that Kyren Lacy was actively passing vehicles when the crash occurred, which is incorrect. He did pass 4 vehicles, but was back in the southbound lane before the crash occurred. And now we know, according to this data, that was 72.6 yards, as it's stated in this report.
When I think at one point while we were talking, you indicated to me that Kyren was very close to being vindicated on this matter. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in my opinion, I had a very good idea of enough started adding up to me to know that there were holes all over this thing, right? So it's the policy of the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office that all homicides go to a grand jury. We were nearing that grand jury, right? Where all of this was coming out. Everything I'm telling you now is going to be presented to a grand jury in a fair, neutral, and impartial manner. So, in my opinion, this never survives a grand jury. Never, ever survives a grand jury. We were 48 hours from that, from this report
So sad.
getting to the grand jury, right? So it is the process. They moved it as quickly as they could. And by that, I just mean, it was done just like, which is the right thing to do, like every other case. It was done fair and square where, look, we have a homicide. We have to go through this process. The only promise that Ms. Russell made to myself and civil counsel for Mr. Hall was that she would complete the investigation and immediately set it for grand jury out of fairness to both. And she did that. She did exactly what she promised she would do. Insofar as an investigation, we had no idea what a result would be on her end. No clue. We just knew it was being done. They didn't sit on it for, some amount of time. They worked it thoroughly, but in the time manner that they could. And they set it for grand jury just like they promised. So we couldn't have asked for more from a office who has always been and will always be just extremely fair, right? I mean, that's all you can ask for. There's no fault on their part. There's certainly no fault whatsoever on the part of Mr. Hall. That's a wonderful family. Believe me, it's not easy for me to get up here right now. There's a man who passed away other than Kyren Lacy, and his life was just as important as Kyren Lacy.
And that was one thing I regretted, and I would tell the family that I didn't spend enough time talking about Mr. Hall. He's deceased, and just
That's
paying
true.
our respects to their family too, because they're grieving and naturally they're going through a lot of
They are.
turmoil too. But of course, I guess what we're looking for on this show is, and I think everyone would want it. I don't care which side you're on. You just want the truth.
I just want the accurate truth, right? What one thing, and I hate to, in fact, I'm not going to harp on it again, but you're right. That's all we're after here is a better picture of the truth. That's it. Never what do you get me up here to try and put a black eye on state police. Look, man, these guys got a tough job. Tough job. There's some excellent, wonderful individuals, more than I can ever imagine, actually. I enjoy working with them. That's not my point here. But I hold myself accountable. I hold everyone that I come across accountable. They get no pass from me either. That doesn't mean they're bad people, right? That's not what we're here to say. That's not what I'm saying. I've never said that. I never will. I'm simply here to compare and contrast. Now, the findings of the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office versus the findings of state police.
And I want to say that's all he really needs to do. His advocacy in putting together the details and painting the picture, just show me the information. and I can use my own discernment. I can go through the information, and if the information there is going to suggest to me, if it's going to lead me to the conclusion, it's not this attorney that's leading me to the conclusion. It's the information that what we're hearing being suggested by the officer, Tyler Warner, on the audio of the body-worn camera footage when he's speaking to the driver of the gold truck, the witness, and then what we're seeing written in a written statement that's signed by Tyler but refused by the gold truck driver don't line up. That contrast, I always love talking about contrast. That contrast is very compelling, is very powerful. It's all within the information and comparing the information and evaluating the information. And I can draw my own conclusion about what I think without somebody just needing to share a disparaging opinion about a person or group of people.
We have a vast difference.
Let me go a little step further because I want to go to Houston a little bit because, there and again, I mean, if you watch Facebook or you listen to social media, you're going to get 20 different reasons why Kyren Lacy took his life. And I'm going to go out on a limb.
There is a big expectation, especially when you get on social media, that there is only one explanation for why somebody might do a thing. Some people it's a linear, one-track minded approach to evaluating the way people react to things. And usually it's through a lens of, well, not that I've ever been in that situation, but I bet if it were happening to me, I wouldn't do that. And because I don't think that if I was in that moment, which I've never experienced myself before, but I know I wouldn't act the way this person did, that person did that thing because they're actually guilty of what they're being accused of. There's no other explanation. That is like the core sentiment that I was seeing on a little rewind going down social media memory lane in reactions to the news that Kyren Lacy had taken his own life before the grand jury hearing. Why would he kill himself if he wasn't guilty? Why would he kill himself if he didn't do it? It's the guilt that made him kill himself. And that type of sentiment, that type of linear conclusion that boxes out any other explanation, trivializes the impact of false accusations. False accusations create victims. And I do not think that anybody can have an honest philosophy to stand behind if they want to advocate for victims, if they trivialize or treat false accusations as some type of necessary collateral damage in the advocacy of other victims. And I don't even want to say of, quote, real victims. I don't want to quote real victims because that quotes make things sound superficial or imply that victims of false accusations aren't victims themselves. But there's really this mindset that people are guilty because they act in ways that I personally wouldn't act. And it doesn't matter if people might have different socialization, different ways of responding to things. I'm the main character of my own story, and I'm just going to put the period at the end of the sentence with my own conclusion that Kyren Lacy did this thing and is the cause of Mr. Hall's death, and then fled the scene like a coward. Now, if the whole internet, you have these, I don't even want to say that it's not something that, something low profile. This could have been a false accusation that never went viral on the internet, that didn't involve somebody that was going into the NFL draft. The weight of a false accusation can and does drive people to suicide. And that's why we cannot trivialize the impact of false accusations. It doesn't matter. There's people that think that false accusations are extremely rare. Does that make it okay? Statistics actually suggest there's plenty of studies that show it's upwards of 10% of rate of occurrence, depending on the area of subject matter that you're looking. So I wouldn't call that rare. But should something be trivialized if it causes a loss of life? For some purported greater good, for the effort to advocate for victims? Because that sure seems like victims of false accusations shouldn't be treated as victims. And I just have a huge problem with that. So I'm so glad that this attorney exists and is doing what he's doing for Kyren, even though Kyren's dead. Kyren's not coming back. He killed himself because of this. But it's not like this attorney said that the story ends here. So what he's doing is raising awareness, not just it's clearing the name of his client, but also I think is very impactful for why false accusations aren't insignificant. Oops, somebody lied. Oh well. You know what? It's great that the thing that they thought happened to them didn't actually happen. Isn't that a good thing? As if the impact it has on the person that they've accused is meaningless and has no impact. A family is without their son and their brother, their cousin, their nephew. A team is without their peer. Friends lost their friend. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Because I figure you probably know the truth on this matter. Is there anything that you would like to set straight about the Houston part of this story?
I don't know that the Houston part of this story didn't upset me more than the front end. Let me just say this. Kyren Lacy went to Houston that Friday with his mind made. He was suffering. There was a point in time that night at his apartment, the apartment that he, his little brother, and his cousin were in. His mind was made. He wanted the keys to that vehicle to, I don't know how to say this, to
take his life.
Yeah. So it's either you give me my keys and I do this on my own accord, or this is going to go down right here, right now. Obviously, the keys were given. A welfare call was made. Keyword, welfare. Welfare check. Right? There was no crime. There's none of that, man.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's getting at here is there was another story that went around that he was about to shoot somebody else, right? And that went to perpetuate a narrative that Kyren Lacy's violent. Not only was he road raging and killed an innocent veteran that was driving, but that he was also going to shoot other people as the consequence of having to face reality for his own actions. That's what this attorney, I think he's so mad that he's like, I don't know what to say. I don't think he's having trouble saying to take his own life. I think he's having an issue trying to reconcile the way people responded to the story that he took his own life, but was really about to somehow shoot other people. That's why he's clarifying, no, the other individual called in a welfare check because Kyren Lacy just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kill myself one way or another.
Drugs, none of that BS. Kid's mind was made. You know the rest of the story.
So he told whomever he was with that was the place and time. Wasn't there a shot fired or something?
That's how he got his keys. I think that's how you're showing him. And by the way, the shot was fired in the ground on purpose to let them know the seriousness of what was going on in his.
Which is dangerous, by the way. I think a lot of people don't know that, but it's not just like bullet goes down and disappears. It could ricochet and actually harm somebody. So I think a lot of people think shooting up in the air or shooting down is the safe way to send a warning shot. It's not going to hurt anybody because nobody's standing below where I'm shooting or up in the air. But bullets can come back down. Bullets can ricochet. Just word of a reminder if you're not aware that that's not a picture perfect way to let yourself be known.
So he wanted their attention.
He wanted his keys.
Yeah.
And they knew not to give him his keys. They knew what was going to happen. But what are you going to do? You going to watch it go down or are you going to give him his keys?
Right.
His mind was made. social media killed him. Killed him. All those tough guys behind the computer,
Yep.
same ones that would come after me when I do this interview, those guys.
A young man could not get used to it.
They're kids, man. The difference between you and I, Martin, and them, they don't know anything else other than those devices.
Right.
You especially, I'm a little bit younger, but even myself, that's a later deal. That's all they know. They can't get away from them.
Shots
And they
fired.
believe what these people say. They believe it.
Right.
It doesn't matter what I showed you today. There are going to be people that are going to talk horribly about him, horribly about me. Life is such, but I have a job to do. No matter who is in the way of that. You have to do what you have to do. Whatever consequences come my way from this, so be it.
And
YOLO.
I'm hearing you loud and clear. He, in his own mind, and I'm speculating, he was already prosecuted in his own mind.
That's correct.
And this is critical too. I mean, we talk about a lot of cases post-conviction, right? People did time for 22 years and then they're exonerated. And the aspect is a literal loss of freedom through wrongful incarceration for decades of life that you're not going to get back. But I think, was it Boston? There was a case in Boston. Just last week, I was reading that the city awarded a settlement to 2 individuals who were just falsely accused. One individual was never even arrested, but their name was put out in the news by the police. And then the second individual was arrested, but never charged, never convicted. There was no wrongful incarceration. But that, and I'll Google it and get the link. I forget the name offhand. But in principle, the idea is we finally have an acknowledgement. The city's agreeing to pay a settlement to these 2 individuals because of the damage that an accusation caused. And that's such a poignant point. He already felt that he was persecuted, prosecuted. And that's the weight of false accusations. I unequivocally, it's my conclusion that Kyren Lacy is a victim of false accusations.
He's already prosecuted.
And we can only imagine, he wasn't the Vikings about to draft him?
I had talked to the Saints. I had talked to the Vikings. Not that I'm his agent by any stretch,
No,
but
no.
there were teams reaching out to learn about this matter, that really liked him. But they obviously wanted to know what was going on. I did the best that I could to tell them and advise them the grand jury was set for this particular day. We didn't make it there, though. So Kyren Lacy is going to change the way things are done. He's going to make people think twice about what they say before they say it. Not everybody. Somebody. Maybe Kyren Lacy makes someone think twice before the next investigation to say, hold on, maybe we got to look at a few other things here, right? Maybe let's not jump to conclusions. Thoroughly review. Just maybe somebody else is saved from the same exact thing. Maybe thousands.
I do offer all other sides a chance to come. They can debate it or rebut or whatever.
To this day, formal charges were never accepted by the district attorney. This is over.
Over.
There's no
Done.
criminal proceeding.
Done.
This is about making a promise to a kid who begged you to help him. You make a promise, you follow through on that promise. It's nothing more, nothing less to tell the world Kyren Lacy's version. He never got to tell the world his version. We just did that.
Wow. Have you spoken to his family?
I did.
Seth?
I did. I met with him after obtaining everything, thoroughly going through it, watching videos, listening to statements. We've seen everything. And, it just brings back a lot of memories. Same for Mr. Hall's family. I know it brings back some memories you guys don't want to recall. Same for the Lacey family. Because at the end of the day, you got 2 very important lives that were lost. Nothing's going to bring that back, either one of them. So I talked to him. You can about imagine how it went. Very cordial, though. No yelling, no throwing, none of that. A lot of crying.
Right.
As I suspect Mr. Hall's family does the same thing, rightfully so, right? So it's just not fun for anybody, to be quite frank.
And that's the hardest part about doing an interview like this is you have so many people involved, and Kyren Lacy just happens to be such a high profile person that I know the Halls grieving. And once again, if I had any regrets from the first interviews that I didn't talk about Mr. Hall, and from what I heard, he was a tremendous man and just great storyteller, good person. But
Class act family.
It's just, it seems to be a tragedy all the way around.
It is.
When you really look at it.
It is. There's no winners here. There never will be. The class that Mr. Hall's family has exhibited has been tremendous. I know it's hard, but truly appreciated.
Yeah, and hopefully this can find some kind of space where truth is always the best aspect of people coming forward. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the state police too, because I've worked with them for 42 years on their desk. They come every week to do news stories, and we always want to be careful on this news desk that we don't say something that sort of depicts the whole deal as being the whole state police or the whole district attorney's office or anything like that. We want to sort of categorize things.
There's no question, man. There's nothing easy about it. You and I talked about it, not that it had anything to do with this. We talked about Frank Bason earlier. What a stand-up class act, right?
Yeah.
Christine Russell, stand-up class act. Family of Mr. Hall, stand-up class act. The Lacey family has been a stand-up class act. And Kyren Lacy, to me, was a stand-up class act. There's no winner here. We're all lost. But at least we have a little more accuracy. And at least the second side of the story is told.
When you were at his funeral, you got up and spoke,
I did.
and you looked at him, and you made a promise to him. Is this kind of what the promise you were talking about, finding out what took place?
Yeah. His parents had given me a pin of his picture. And at that funeral, I took it home with me, obviously, but as he's sitting there, he had always asked me previous to that, Mr. Matt, you got me, dog? Kyren, I promise you, I got you, dog. So I get home and I took that pin. It's got his picture on it, and I kept it out every day. And I wrote on the back of it, I got you, dog. Never let it leave that side. And this is my version, bringing clarity. Bringing his version is me telling him, I got you, dog. Whatever that's worth, I don't know. I hope that he's looking down and has a little peace, because he didn't go out with peace.
Matt, we appreciate you joining us today in tough circumstances, and thanks for coming in and sharing your thoughts and some of your findings with us.
Very welcome.
All right.
Yeah, so I don't have a reaction for that part. Stuff like that makes me really sad to see. I hate seeing other people feel like they, maybe didn't do enough. That that makes me really sensitive. So Jakesha says, do something fun after this live. It's so heavy. I'll just be crying because I get mad, but I'll be good. I appreciate you guys all here, obviously caring. This is just so stupid. Like, I'm not even wishing for pitchforks against driver number 2. I'm just wishing that the cops are in a position, they have power in their line of duty to effectuate, justice, right? They are the starting point. And in this case, because the officer was doing bullshit, there really isn't justice for the Hall family. I would not be surprised. Obviously, this is just a guess, but I think it's possible for the family members of a victim to feel some type of guilt or remorse towards someone that was falsely accused and their family members. So you have a family that maybe in whatever circumstance, this is speaking beyond this case, because I don't know. But you could have grief because you've lost a loved one, and then have a whole extra layer of grief added because now your family, you're part of a court process, criminal, and it seems like potentially civil litigation, because if you believe that somebody recklessly took the life of your loved one, it's completely justifiable for you to want to seek recourse through the civil channels, right? But then you find out you're doing all this. It takes time, money. You have to think about it day in and day out while this stuff is going on. You're reliving the loss of your loved one every time you have to deal with an aspect of the case, criminal or civil. Just to find out all of this, something like this. Like, how does that help victims? It's created a victim. It's created Kyren Lacy as a victim. It's made the Lacey family go through an extra layer of trauma. And I would say that going through a trial, if Kyren Lacy was alive and had to go through trial for this, or even if the charges were dropped, but he already went through what he went through, that is such a length, an extended length of trial and tribulations for Lacey and his family to go through, even if it turned out that on the day of the grand jury hearing, no indictment was returned. And in theory, it ended there. Because it wouldn't have ended there. He would have had to rebuild his reputation. He would still have to deal with what I'm sure would be a swath of people on the internet saying that he got away with murder because they couldn't be asked to go and watch like a 17, maybe less second video clip that shows something very different than what the police reports stated were the facts. We've got a palate cleanse in the... Oh, man. I'm going to bookmark this factual lie. I cannot see what it is. I just see that it's a YouTube link. But yeah, I think we need that palate cleanse. I saw Ashley discussing the impact of CTE. And Mara, CTE probably makes depression worse. I don't know if that was necessarily at play here. But I think it's very important. If somebody's dealing with CTE, it'd be great for us to have a better understanding and, for the people that are immersed in the world of sports, athleticism, to recognize the signs and understand, let's try to do something sooner rather than later. For those of us that are outside of that realm that might not be in the position to directly help someone that's dealing with that, I think it would be important for us to understand that CTE or not, right? Depression can exist without CTE. And things can happen that might drive somebody to the point where they want to take their life. How do you intervene and do something beforehand? And unfortunately, in a situation like this, I don't think that... I think he had an attorney that was fighting for him. I think his family, from everything I've seen, seems extremely supportive, and I can only imagine what they're going through, and I'm sure they have to feel some sense of... I don't know how they could not feel some type of survivor's remorse or guilt about this. It's just a natural thing to feel, even if you shouldn't feel that way. But what could they really do to stop this from happening when the thing that's triggering this is a police report and what's getting out into the media, how social media is reacting based off of one line that they heard released through the media from a police report that was relying on a refused witness statement? And then the district attorney still, even though they are no longer pursuing anything, at that point in time, they were still pursuing, a grand jury hearing, hoping to secure an indictment. What could the attorney, what could Kyren, what could the family, what could any supporters, what could any friends have done to stop those things? And I don't have a good answer. All I know is that looking back now, and I wish I knew this case earlier, looking back now, the initial reaction was so condemning of Kyren Lacy that I wonder if it puffed the district attorney to keep the charges going forward. And I think the lesson there is, yes, tragic stories come out in the news. It'd be nice if we could take reporting at face value. But we need to understand that sometimes when we're looking at reporting and the reports are just reciting what they saw in a written statement that's included in a police report, those are 3 layers there where there could be inaccuracies, intentional or not. So let's hit the brakes and let's say, well, that's one side of it. Does this add up? Is there more information? And maybe if we didn't have a social media culture that was so quick to run and pull out the pitchforks. And on the flip side, I really think there's a lynch mob that's ready to run out the second you raise your hand and say, hey, maybe we should wait for more information. There's a group of people that will jump out and be like, you're blaming a victim. Or how could you stand up for somebody like that? Even if you're not really defending anybody on either side. You could just be saying like, hey, I'm waiting for a filing to come out. Or, hey, charges haven't even been brought yet. Let's wait and see. There's already a loud, a loud group on the internet that will find you and will say, you're a horrible person. Just for saying, hold on. Let's have some patience and let's not rush to judgment. And those people believe that just because the police think that somebody did something and that a district attorney's office wants to bring charges, that 100%, without a doubt, the person that they have their eyes on did the thing they're being accused of doing. And we've just got to change that mindset. Yes, and Slick says you should have just seen how they kept it up in the media and all the comments and inbox messages he was getting, hate messages. It was insane. I was not immersed in this story with that happening. And I don't want to erase Kyren's story. But like the reaction, the pattern of reaction, it fires off. Every time that there's a story where somebody is accused of doing something, the reaction just fires off. It's like the floodgates open. And there's like no stopping it once it's there. Correct information could come out. And I think this is the rare example of the correction going viral. And I just wish that what we're seeing from Matt Ory and what we're seeing with people reacting to Kyren Lacy. I even saw somebody, it was really cool to see. I think I retweeted it so I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, okay. So, shout out to Carter 2 times. I saw this come up on my feed. The algorithm was working its magic. He retweeted something from January 10th where he says, y'all should really let that Kyren Lacy situation play out before doing what y'all are doing. I know firsthand how police reports often do not reflect the evidence, and lo and behold, we now found out people were running wild with a written statement from somebody that refused to sign off on it. They were basically taking the officer's words that were refused by the witness himself and running with it. And Carter 2 times says, especially in the area the wreck happened, I know better. So shout out to, there are a lot of people like Carter 2 times that said, you know what, let's wait and see. This sounds terrible. This sounds horrible. What a sad story. But let's wait and see before we fully commit to condemning somebody, right? And there are a lot of people, I appreciate people like this, but they're just so much quieter. They get drowned out by the rest of the reactions. So, what ESPN... Oh my God. Mara, this is another great example. The Mick Patel story. You guys remember Ashley Merchant went and pulled footage from Walmart, did a whole bunch of extra legwork. But the state, the prosecution, just wanted to show a little part and narrate it and say, well, we've got this woman, Caroline Miller, saying, Mick Patel, Mahendra Patel was trying to kidnap my children while I was driving around on a power scooter in Walmart and almost running my kids over with that same power scooter. Even the judge got the feel that the case was ridiculous for the district attorney to be pursuing kidnapping charges on. But the state just went with it anyway. Carolyn Miller had already done news interviews and people were going wild in Facebook comments like, wow, monster, lock him up. So because we created this story that he's a monster that needs to be locked up because he tried to kidnap children at a store, that's every parent's nightmare, we can't walk it back once we see more information that that's not really what happened. We've got to stick with the initial story. So I always hate the initial reaction. It doesn't, 99% of the time, the initial story doesn't match reality, but the reaction to it has already flooded out the gates, and it's very hard to recontain and bring people back down to earth. And I don't blame people for feeling compassionate towards if they believe somebody like Carolyn Miller. I don't blame somebody for getting amped up and riled up because they believe somebody was out there trying to kidnap children from a store, right? We should feel angry if and when those things actually happen. But we should always exercise some patience to make sure that's the reality before treating it like the reality. KC Doug says, social media, the gift and the curse. Right, and it's crazy because you'll get the wrong information on social media and then you've got to go to social media to get the bits and pieces of the corrections. So, FFS says, F the public opinion. It causes problems. So, just crazy. Guys, with that being said, this was an unexpected stream. Very, very interesting to look at, very sad all around, but I think the silver lining, Trikisha says we need to do something that lifts us up after this. I really think seeing the attorney do what he's doing, it's motivating, it's empowering, and the fact that he's going viral for his advocacy for his client, and now we have a whole wave of social media reactions like Kyren was innocent, he was framed, he was falsely accused, and now he took his own life. We need to do something to change this in the future. I hope it makes that small start to move the needle in a big way, where we don't just lynch mob and condemn people the second we hear something about them. Because this is not going to be the first time it happens. And different circumstance, but about a year ago, there was a big story, an arrest involving Xavier Worthy with the Kansas City Chiefs, domestic dispute, but he ends up coming out with other evidence. His dreads were pulled out in a fight and they resolved things, however they resolved it, not really disclosed in full detail. But it's resolved. He's released from jail. DA didn't pursue criminal charges. And then the civil suit and then the counter civil suit both closed out. But the initial reaction to that was, and not my thoughts, guys, but what I saw when I was looking at the reactions, I like to look at the reactions on social media, was another football player, and you can read the connotations from that if you choose to, right? In another domestic dispute. And it could have greatly impacted his career. I'm sure it affected his mental health. And I don't know the full outcome, but I can tell you that the initial claims were contradicted by some of the things that his defense attorneys were able to present through their counterclaim, their filings. But most people didn't get down the funnel to the information that came out later, even though they reacted quickly. Within a few days, they already were trying to put information out there. And the average person doesn't have those resources to have an attorney that's going to go do interviews and put things out there and correct the record. So I just hope we can be more open-minded. And that's really all. Yeah, Casey Doug, I don't know. I covered that actually. With Tyreek Hill, it was a civil suit, in part suing for damages relating to medical expenses after, they were playing like a passing rush type of game, him and a woman. And in one of the things, she wanted to do it again because she lost the first time. She wanted to do it again. And then she slipped in the interaction and split. I think I don't know how to describe injuries, but something happened where you overexert and there was a fracture because of the way that she slipped while they were making contact running this fake play for fun. And then she sued like a year later for the medical expenses and I think emotional damages too. So, or intentional, I don't know the exact anymore. But it was kind of like, I don't know. People took that story, and there were some comments back then that they just thought he was beating on a woman. That's not even what the accusation was. But on social media, it telephone gamed into that. So, I don't have, I never really have plans to go live. But Dolly popped in here and that reminded me. Dolly and, hey, it's Luis. Love them both. Let me know that Nicole Fagan, you guys might know her as YSL Nicole, she has a trial starting on Monday. We're going to stream that. It's going to be in Judge McBurney's courtroom. Tomorrow I'm going to try to go live for like maybe 45 minutes to do the background on the case. We'll watch the pretrial hearing from earlier this week. Get caught up on the indictment. It's a short indictment, but there's some mess in there that we're going to talk about. And we're going to use it to segue into some case law that came about in July of 2025 relating to predicate acts that can be used for felony murder charges. We're going to look at that new case law that I think is blessing the district attorney's office in Fulton County. I think you guys will think it's interesting. I think it's frustrating. So we'll do a short stream on that tomorrow, and we'll start the trial on Monday. We'll try to watch it live. Adam Abadi said that he plans for his case to go through Wednesday of this week, which Judge McBurney does half days on Wednesdays because he does trial and drug court at the same time. And Nicole Fagan said, I think we'll be able to wrap this up on Thursday. So I'll be able to do it because it's a short trial. So Monday through Thursday-ish. I don't really know much about the defendant. I want to watch Nicole Fagan lawyer. I want to see her live and in action. And I think you guys, I took a quick look at the indictment. We'll get some 131 and 133s mentioned. So I think you guys will like that. With that being said, you guys, it should be a 9 o'clock start Eastern on Monday. So, and Amy, hold on, wait, Amy's in the building. And J Money. Hey, J Money. Amy E is in the building. You know what, guys? If you're looking for stuff to watch, I always say it at like 6 p.m., right? When I'm wrapping up regular streams, but we've got the whole day. It's almost 6, actually. It's Saturday. It's the weekend. What a better time than now to go get caught up on all of the new content that Amy E has posted. You know, she does a ton of body cam footage. Some of them are a bit more lighthearted and humorous, right? So still in the realm of, criminal justice system. Sometimes they're goofy, a little bit funny, a bit easier to digest. So go check that out over there. Good to see you, Amy. Oh, what time tomorrow? I don't know. Hopefully like 11 a.m. Hopefully we'll start before like around 11 or noon Eastern time tomorrow. And then 9 a.m. on Monday, we'll start when Judge McBurney goes live. So again, planned for like a 3-day trial. Also, the trial for the New York State Department of Corrections officers charged in the murder of Brooks. Those that are taking it to trial, minus the one that was severed and has their own trial over in January, which I didn't know until Nancy New told me that one was severed and was going to have their own trial in a few months. But those that are going to trial on Monday, will also try to look out for some updates on that as we watch Nicole Fagan defend her client. It's the first time I'm going to watch her practice live. So there we go. There we go. Yeah, my days are all messed up all the time, so I don't blame you, YP. And then find a redirect, you guys. Who's got something going on right now? That's the reason, YP? So back to the New York State Department of Corrections case, the guy that was severed and wants a separate trial did it for stand your ground law. Welp. We'll see how that plays out. And, I guess, innocent until proven guilty, but it's interesting to see someone in the position, a group of individuals in the position of power over others that have been accused and convicted, now standing trial. All right, so YouTube is showing me Brother Counsel's going live soon, maybe? Let me see if it gives me... Nope, not today. But tomorrow it looks like Brother Counsel will be talking about the Karen Reed civil case. So put that on your radar if you're interested in following that. I've got nothing live that isn't like a video game content thing. So no redirect today, you guys. But thinking on Rewind, the Fit Lawyer ATL was live this week. She went to New York for the Diddy sentencing. So I'm going to give a plug, go backwards and rewind and get her insights there. Great way to get some insight on, boots on the ground, the feel of how things were there. But also great analysis on why were things playing out this way? Why did sentencing take so long? Why were so many people allowed to speak? How did the timetables math out? Fit Lawyer, we love her here, but she did. We love her here for the Moonktune case. But if you didn't know, she has a channel. And she's got plenty of stuff for you to catch up on. So there is her link in the chat. And we'll leave off with this. J Money says, hope everyone's having a great weekend. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you right back for hanging out with me, because this wouldn't be the same without you guys. See you tomorrow. Bye, guys.